very pleasant good morning. It is time for Money Info, brought to you by Princeton Research with Mike King in Las Vegas and Charles Moscowitz in lovely Boston, Massachusetts.
Yeah, they wouldn't let Dave in either.
Must have some class or something. How are you, Charles?
Okay.
So what's going on in Boston? You got a new manager, and he's one of the all-time great guys.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. I've known him for a lot of years, and you'll love him up there.
And the markets are exploding. Big quality stocks like Caterpillar are making new all-time highs.
Yeah.
Well, Caterpillar and 3M
Yeah.
are both had earnings this morning,
Catapulting.
and with the Dow at up 176, they represent about $120 of it.
So are we going to hit 30,000 here soon? This is absurd. It's flying every day.
Way fall soon. I mean, we only hit 23,000. We went from 22 to 23 in 50 days, and now it's less than 15 days, and we're 44% of the way to 24,000.
Wow. This is amazing. But seriously, though, looking at these magnificent numbers, how many people are really involved in all this stuff, and how many stocks are really? Huh?
Everyone. Everyone's involved.
Really?
How do you not be involved? If you own a mutual fund or you have a 401k,
That's true.
or an IRA,
Yeah,
you're involved.
that's true.
So,
I guess so. Yeah.
You know, people who think that they're not involved in the market and are missing something are, clearly wrong. Also, Polaris, 118 up $12. That's the company that makes the ATVs and the watercraft. The 1 and 2 person watercraft up $12.
Oh God! Oh, $12 bucks! Wow. Yeah, what's going on with them?
Same thing, earnings.
But somebody said that Whirlpool is like in trouble, and
Well, they are somewhat in trouble. I mean, they make Kenmore.
yeah, they have for years.
So they make Kenmore, and clearly Sears is, well in trouble. So that loses an outlet, which I think is probably the impetus behind the deal where Sears allows Amazon to sell Kenmore.
Oh, are you kidding?
No,
Oh,
it's been around for a couple of weeks now.
whoa!
You also have Stanley Black & Decker up again big on earnings. One that we had that was actually, I want to say it was the biggest trade profit that we ever had on an option was UTX. They had earnings, and it's barely up. I mean, it's up 15 cents at 121. And they had good numbers, too.
Wow.
So, if you want to see what happens on the other side of the coin in earnings, all you have to do is look over at one of the biotechs that, goes in the daily note almost every single night. Biogen IDEC, BIIB, currently trading 306, down 22. That's pretty major. 7% it's down. Also, earnings and competition on one of their drugs. Not competition. I take that back. They had a drug that was getting X in repayment from the insurance companies, and all of a sudden they cut that by about 40%. So they're still selling the drug, but they're going to make 40% less. Yeah, There it is on the tape. 305.68 down 22.87.
So they're only making $200 a pill versus
Well,
1,000,
you know,
whatever.
but the stock is based on what its earnings are, and the earnings will be down. So who knows? That's the old story. We only lose a little on every pill we sell, but we make up for it in volume.
Yes. Okay. Oh, man.
So 3M and Caterpillar, big on the upside. Let's see, Lilly also beat, and it's up, not overwhelmingly, but, up. The oils are doing really well. We're right at this point where we have all of the highs, that 22 and a quarter to, 52 and a quarter to 55 and three quarters, and every one of the oil stocks was up yesterday. Every one of the ones that I follow, every one of them are up today. It seems pretty healthy.
Well, and it also looked quite interesting. I was watching CNBC just briefly. The NFL was just unwatchable. And they were talking about whatever this new Saudi oil conglomerate is, that they're going to be over the top, and the biggest oil company in the world supposedly, but then CNBC yesterday had this huge article on fracking, and what our Houston contingent is constantly talking about the Permian Basin, and not just the Permian Basin, but what's the other Eagle Ford Shale? The Eagle Ford Shale are like white hot right now. Yeah. So
and oil, is trading up about 30 cents at this 52.20, 52.19, with a high of 52.45 now. Every single time that it has done this, I have bought the inverse leveraged ETF, SCO. I bought it a day early last week and had to sell it. And I bought the options, which I also had to sell on the 50% down rule. But we're right up here again. We have not had a close anywhere in this area above 52.52. And that was way back in the end of September 25th. And, 3 days later, it hit 53.11 as the high and managed to close 51.87, and in 5 trading days get down to 49.44. So we're right in that area, and frankly, I'm looking at that pretty hard. The actual SCO, the ETF, is currently trading $33, and it's down $0.50 today. And it's a 3-to-1. So if oil goes down 1%, this goes up 3%. So we've probably made that trade 10 times already this year, either buying the UCO, which is the oil, up, in the $18 to $20 area and making $2 or $3 on it, and then selling it and going back into the short side. So we're pretty much right there.
Wow, that sounds great. I mean, you have to wonder, with everything that seems to be going on in the world, like Venezuela, which is a big oil producer that they're really unstable down there. And if they kind of go away, then, if we can somehow become just ourselves, and then maybe do a little exporting along the way, this could be kind of interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are other issues about Venezuela. For example, they basically have funded Cuba, the Cuban economy, for the past several years, and that money is drying up, so things get, fairly tough there.
I thought Russia was doing that.
Well, they do it, but they also do. I think that most of the newer vehicles in Cuba, aside from the 50 and 60-year-old muscle cars from the U.S., is China. And China makes their buses and passenger cars, and so, they have that also. They have that as somebody who's supportive, because I'm sure they're not selling it to them for full price because they couldn't possibly afford it.
Well, that's all right. China's making our Buicks now. So, So what else is new? Good grief. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Interesting. Okay, well, I never thought about it that way, but it's but that what we don't need the real major instability of like a real crazy Venezuela. And we see it a lot here in South Florida. I mean, there's a lot of Venezuela expatriate money and businesses coming over here that are just basically fleeing their homeland.
Yeah. Well, and that's, look, when I lived in Florida and went to school in Miami, or as most people call it, the U, there was the same kind of money coming in from Venezuela, from, not so much from Cuba, obviously, but from Venezuela, from Brazil, from all of the Central American, people with suitcases full of cash that they, had to get out. Now they could buy Bitcoin, so it wouldn't really matter. By the way, on Bitcoin, there was a tweet late last week that, when the Bitcoin hit 6,000 for the first time, from Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks guy.
Oh no! Yes.
Oh yeah, and his tweet said, "I want to thank all of the international governments who have forced me out of the banking system and into Bitcoin for a 50,000% gain."
See, I don't understand any of that stuff.
Okay.
Gain on
You want
what?
a quick lesson?
Yeah.
You want a quick lesson?
Yeah.
Okay. Bitcoin is just a vehicle. What's really behind Bitcoin is their methodology, and it's called blockchain. And what blockchain does, and you see ads for stuff on TV all the time talking about what people are going to use blockchain for, and basically it's a method of tracking that's incorruptible. In other words, when I send Mike, if I'm using a blockchain, when I send Mike an email, it goes to Mike, but it also goes to several other anonymous people so that it can't be altered.
That sounds like a chain letter.
It kind of is. But I can't go back in and change it and defraud Mike, nor can he do that to me, because it went to a bunch of anonymous people. So, nobody knows or let's put it this way, nobody with a name really knows what it's about except me and Mike, and it's incorruptible. So the technology is really the issue. Bitcoin, as far as I'm concerned, and maybe I'm just a dinosaur, but it makes less than no sense to me. And the fact that it's gone from 1,000 or even lower to 6,000, I mean, let me ask you something. If you had to pay someone in Bitcoin, in a method, do you think that something that volatile could possibly be considered a currency? I mean, it's almost like the extreme move is the best argument against it, not for it. Now, I had in the letter, not this past week, but the week before, there was an article in Barron's called Jesse Livermore, who made billions in 1929, would tell you to buy blockchain here. And the article basically said, it's not an investment. It's not investable. It's tradable, and I absolutely would trade it, but I certainly wouldn't invest in it. And so, it's like the volatility of it is completely untenable for a currency. And there's no oversight, which everybody thinks is great. But, that kind of goes back to, one of those stupid sayings that, the NRA goes about espousing. If owning a gun will become criminal, only the criminals will have guns. And, I don't particularly subscribe to that one way or the other with much, concern about it. But it kind of gets that way. When you have this system that has no checks and balances except the technology that says you can't deal with it. So it's interesting as a trade, and if you traded it, you pays your money and you takes your chance. But you would never consider doing that with something as a currency.
Well, yeah, but see, they're talking about that as a currency. But, I mean, who is responsible for that currency?
Only the blockchain, which means that there are multiple layers of security in that nobody can say, well, I paid that with Bitcoin. Nobody can say, no, you didn't, because several anonymous people or systems have the same information. So that makes it, I'm not saying that it's absolutely foolproof, but it is pretty interesting, the technology. I mean, even people like Jamie Dimon, who say, what, Bitcoin? No. Who say no, and it's not valid as a cryptocurrency. It's not really a currency. But they are definitely interested in the system that backs it, blockchain. And so that's why you start to see, again, these ads on TV, and, I think one of them is, relative to food, and they're talking about, and, this tomato picked here and sent via blockchain to, it's not a transportation thing, but it is an accounting thing. And, it's kind of interesting. There are many uses for that kind of stuff.
Okay, so if you're, I'm still way in a fog here. So if you're using Bitcoin to send that tomato to China, how does that tomato get to China?
You're not using that. you're using. Let's go with a more apt analogy. Walmart will not let anybody who sells to them make any shipments that are not included an RFID tag. Okay?
Yeah.
This is the RFID tag because it guarantees the ownership and the transferability of what is being used, sent, delivered, whatever. I mean, it's not like, BitChain is FedEx. They're not making an actual delivery, but they're tracking it in what seems like a pretty foolproof method where there are multiple records of the transfers. I mean, think about Chipotle with all of their problems that they had with their, not their product line, but their line of ingredients. Well, you can check that too, and that will tell you where it went from here to here to here to here before it got here. But that gives you the path all the way back to where that actually came from. Makes tracking.
I think Tim Connally is called in.
Oh, good. Mr. Connally.
I snuck in, and somehow you found me out, Mike.
Oh, sliding through that.
Rick.
Sliding through that oily goo in Houston, Texas, is Tim Connally.
So are we? Am I ready to buy the inverse oil ETF up here at 52.5?
You know the way I feel about it. Every
Yep.
time it gets up in this range, it trades back down to that 47, 48. So
Yep.
I'm looking at the collars. I just got the delivery of this morning's collars from Cargill. And for instance, on the balance of 2017, you can buy a put call of puts at $48.25 and calls at $55.50. So, that nobody is doing a naked put still at $50. And
Right.
they're being pretty smart because by having a call at $55.50, if something crazy happens to prices, Cargill can sell a put against that if somebody has the production. And it's a very interesting, conservative, right now predictable market. I mean,
So
48.
So basically,
48.25.
Cargill is the options principal. They're the market
Exactly.
maker in the options.
They are the
even though
market
they're-
makers.
Even though they're real world versus, versus buying and selling, but they make the market.
They make the market, and they have a corporate policy that at the end of every day you must be flat.
Yeah.
So they sell a put, they buy a call. They buy a call, they sell a put. They are not going to end up naked in any transaction by the end of the day, or else their traders get fired. It's that simple.
Hey, Tim, you deserve a little pat on the back. I think CNBC has just discovered two unknown properties in Florida, or I should say in Texas, the Permian Basin and Eagle Ford Shale, that you've only been talking about for about 10 years.
Now we know it's time to short it.
And
Well, I don't think Jim Cramer was talking about it.
by the way, talking about something like that, there was something that I got an email on yesterday or the day before. It was a cover from 4 years ago for Sports Illustrated, and the title article was the Houston Astros will win the World Series
Yes.
in 2017.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep. No.
I'd love to see that.
Oh, yeah.
I'd
No.
love to
Oh,
see
you can
that.
go to the Sports Illustrated?
Yeah. Go to it,
Okay.
Timmy, because it is amazing. And they had a young player on the front page that is one of the stars of the team this year. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Literally 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Well,
you guys might not know. Years ago, Kramer used to come on our show fairly regularly.
Really?
Mike, I don't know, but Mike, if you can remember when the first, or maybe it was the second time he was on the show because he was trusting us more, he came on and he did a tease just before the commercial. He said, "Okay, everybody, you keep asking me for stock tips. I'm going to give you the best stock tip I have right after these commercials." And I went, "Whoa!" And so we came back, and he said, "If you will short stocks that I recommend on my show, the day after they usually go up by anywhere from 5 to 10%, and they drop back down a week later."
Oh.
Hi, it's
Have you
Rick.
seen the movie Money? I can't remember.
Moneyball?
No, that was a great one.
Yeah.
No, there's a. First of all, there is a website called I've Been Kramered, which is all of the stuff, because the guy is really full of crap. I mean, he really is. He was,
Listen.
wait, he was saying, he was saying at 240, just an example, at 240 he was talking about First Solar being his favorite stock and the biggest in the group and, a must own. And at 190, he was still saying the same thing. And at 120, he was still saying the same thing. And then around 70 or 80 bucks, he came out and said, "Oh, no, I can't sanction this trade."
No.
I love it.
Yep.
Oh, man.
I mean, there are just too many examples of that.
Listen, we've told people so many times before on this show, do your own research and don't invest in what you don't understand.
Right.
I mean, this is investing 101, and yet people have got to be reminded of it all the time. And this whole craze of ETFs, you talk about a good setup for a major correction. ETFs that are robot run, oh boy, that is a recipe for a huge disaster.
It's the same thing that portfolio insurance was in '87.
Oh, sure, it's just another
the market,
name. It's
the
essentially
market,
portfolio
The market
insurance.
goes down, and so the ETFs have to sell securities to meet redemptions, which is a sale, which forces the stock down, which causes more selling, which forces the stock down, which causes more selling.
All the program trades start
Exactly.
kicking in,
Right.
and it could be very, very ugly.
You
Very
know
ugly.
that there are now more ETFs than there are individual stocks.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Good morning,
And
Dave and
what's-
Charlie and all. It's Rick.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
Schumacher from
I'm
Pressure
well.
Biosciences.
Well,
Hey, Mike.
Welcome.
yeah, it's...
Anyway, before we talk to Rick, I just want to mention this is why we do the market letter and the options only account, which is up just a scant 164% year to date, because
Yeah, but what have you done lately?
That's right.
Yeah,
That,
right.
that was my question.
the last thing I took was a $250 loss. But I did take a $1,900 gain on Friday.
I got it.
Yeah.
That's great.
No, but what I'm saying is that if people want to be involved in stuff that they don't really understand, then that's why we created the options only account, because it's only a $10,000 account, and all the individual has to do relative to trading it is commit a fixed amount of money. Follow the rules, get the texts, have a subscription, But really, again, that's why we created this, because in the beginning, there was only a $100,000 account, which was stocks and options. And, people came along and said, well, geez, 100 is a little bit too much for me. And so we created the smaller account. But that's the only way that you can really do it. And that's by having, again, the rules, the texts, the narratives every week, which do a lot towards explaining exactly what we're doing, exactly what happened last week, and whatever we think will happen the next week.
But once again, people have to be paying attention. It's not a passive strategy.
No.
And so I'm going to let Rick talk about his company and get off for now. Hopefully next week we'll have a little more time. I got jammed for time this morning. But I absolutely agree with you, and it is the way for people to educate themselves is basically to piggyback on your education.
Hey, Tim, I've got one final question for you. How are you guys coming back in Houston?
Exceptionally well. I'm actually, one of the reasons I'm late is I'm taking on the turnaround of a major resort development here that during Harvey literally got no damage, which was a great deal.
Really?
It sits on the Texas Gulf Coast. It's on 900 acres. It's all waterfront, and it got no damage. So it was a spot.
Is that a hunting resort?
No, well, oddly enough, there's a hunting and fishing resort in front of it, but this is a primary and secondary home resort that is all waterfront, all canals and all bay frontage.
Oh, nice.
It's called Harbor Walk.
And what town is this in?
This is Hitchcock is a suburb of Galveston.
Yes, yeah,
So
I know where it is.
Just outside of Galveston.
Wow.
Look it up, harborwalk.com.
Harborwalk. Yeah, I will.
And I will let you guys go with Rick, and we'll talk next week.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Wow. That's amazing when you think of everything that happened there, and you have this one development down by Galveston that was not hurt at all. That is mind-boggling. Rick, how are you doing up in Beantown?
I'm doing great, thank you.
What's going on?
Appreciate it.
What's going on at Pressure Biosciences?
Well, as always, we have a lot going on, don't we, guys?
Yes.
We try to keep busy up here. So look, we spoke a couple of weeks ago, and we've had a couple of press releases since, and I should get everybody up to date. One of them was about our expansion in Europe. As you know, we sell instrumentation and consumables to the research community around the world. There are about 500,000 researchers that need to break open cells to get out DNA, RNA, protein. Every day we hear about new drugs and new discoveries and possibly new cures, and they're talking about DNA and proteins and lipids. And you have to get to that material inside the cells, and that's what we do. We make a machine that is a next-generation machine. It actually presses the cell until it breaks. We use pulses of pressure, and like squeezing a sponge, we squeeze the cell until it breaks. It's really a neat technology because it enables you to control the process. When you break a cell, you don't want to overbreak it because you can hurt the molecules inside that you want to study, the DNA, proteins, etc. You don't want to underbreak it because then you don't get everything out, or you may not even break it. So we have a process that's totally new, patented, where we dial into a computer the amount of pressure and we squeeze it till it breaks. So that's the background. We received CE marking, which allows us to sell in Europe on our new machine. In February, we've been working with setting up distributions, and we had a terrific couple of months where we had a number of people from our company, 3 or 4, went to different meetings to work on trying to expand our sales. One meeting was in Munich, which was a major meeting. It was headed by a group called SciEx. SciEx is a Danaher company, an $80 billion subsidiary of an $80 billion company. SciEx is our co-marketing partner. SciEx is the largest company in the world selling a machine called a mass spectrometer to read proteins. We sit in front of their machine. Their machine is about a $500,000 instrument. Ours is about $50,000, and we think we make their machine better. We think they must think that too because they signed a a 2-year deal with us. We're a 9-person company. They're a 3,000-person company, so we're very proud of getting that deal last year. So we were invited to present, and we presented at this SciEx workshop. There were a few hundred people from different countries in Europe there to listen, and there were presenters from SciEx, presenters from academia, and our instrument, guys, was discussed quite a few times. There were data presented, there were discussions presented on why one should consider using our instrument to break a cell rather than the old-fashioned ways of just beating up cells. So we're very proud of being able to be invited and presenting at that SciEx mass spectrometry workshop for a couple of days in Germany. We also had a scientist go to Poland where there was an annual high-pressure meeting, and again, there was a lot of focus on us and our instrumentation because we have really the only commercially available machine that can pump pressure in and out of a system to break a cell in the world. And so we were invited to Poland, and we had our scientists give a talk. And the third meeting was in Dublin, Ireland, where there were mass spectrometry scientists, experts from all over the world that congregate once a year in a different site. This year it was Dublin, and there were several talks about our system there. So really good time the week before last with a number of things that happened in Europe to help us kick off our expansion with our brand new instrument that's now CE marked.
Boy, that is incredible news. And it seems, of course, obviously it doesn't, it seems like forever for you, but boy, it seems like that has been moving along ever since you got that CE marking.
Yep, it is, and it goes further. That's we have expansion in the U.S. As you guys know, we've hired 5 salespeople, 4 full-time, 1 part-time, and we have our first sales team. We've been running this company and growing the company to $2 million in sales on the backs of 1 person in sales. Now we have 6 people in sales, and they all went out into the field starting a couple of weeks ago, so we're very excited. In the U.S., we're going direct, and we have 6 people out there selling, something we've never done before. It's terrific. And in Europe now we have distribution network set up, and we've got a number of people that have been at meetings for the last couple of months talking about the system. So, but in addition, just last Wednesday, we released news that we signed a strategic collaboration with a company called Phasix. Phasix is a leading company in an area that's called supercritical fluid processing. And what that sounds kind of fancy, but basically what it is, it's a very clean, very green way to break open plants and other things that contain, let's say, potential vitamins and nutrients and nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals. There's a lot of ways to break them open and then to break out the molecule that we're interested in. But if you're using chemical methods, there's always a chance that some of that chemical, some of that solvent you use, acetone or something else, might still be left in the sample when you're done. And especially if this is something to be ingested, you have to take a lot of pains to make sure you get all of that solvent out or other chemicals out. This is a very clean way. You use carbon dioxide gas and to break open cells and to break open tissues and to get out these products that ultimately end up being perhaps pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals. And so this way of using it, supercritical fluid, it's been around for a number of years. And really one of the pioneers is Dr. Val Krakonis, who started Phasix more than 35 years ago. We signed a collaboration agreement with them, and we announced it the other day. And the reason we did is we talked briefly about the 2 patents that we got. Last time I was on the phone, we talked about the 2 patents that were issued from China and that we've applied pretty much everywhere else in the world you might expect us to, Europe, U.S., Asia. And these patents are what we call ultra-shear technology. And what they do is we use a combination of high pressure, super high pressure. We're talking pressures that go up to 87,000 psi. So we use a combination of high pressure between 40,000 and 87,000 and we follow it by having the liquid. Once the liquid, and let's say it might be liquid cheese, it might be a dairy product, it might be an oil. Once we, or a nutraceutical that's in that oil, in that plant oil, once it's extracted, perhaps through the supercritical fluid, it then goes to high pressure in our system, and then we force it out of small valves and small orifices, and we actually shear the material inside, or shear the oil droplets to nanoparticles, to very small particles, where they then go into solution, or at least into suspension where you can't see them, and they're very small in water. And then when you finally ingest this material, perhaps it's a nutraceutical, you ingest it, it becomes much more bioavailable. So we're very excited. The patents are here, and the first two are here. We think others are coming. Now we have a deal with a tremendous supercritical fluid processing that will get the nutraceutical out of the plant, such as perhaps CBD out of hemp, and then hopefully it'll then go into our system where we will actually shear it, or shear the oil into smaller nanoparticles, where it now can be absorbed much better by the body.
Wow, that sounds amazing. It really does. With that new, what is it, Phase?
Oh,
that company.
Phasix.
Yeah,
Phasix is the company. Yeah.
In tandem with Phasix, this almost sounds like where you were going about maybe 6 months ago, of thinking of getting into the food area, right?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. We're certainly looking at it. We have data that we've developed inside that we think that we can do a good job at using our system to make better what we call nanoemulsions. We believe that we can do this in the dairy product area. Imagine having a dairy product that you not only keep the taste and the texture, but you sterilized it because you were putting it through tremendous pressure and shearing. And we believe that pressure and that shearing combined will destroy the bacteria and the viruses, that particularly the bacteria and the enzymes that cause food to go bad, the spoilage enzymes and pathogens. So we have data which indicates that we probably will be destroying those. As you know, we discussed it before. You know, Starbucks has their Evolution juice line that they sell in all their stores, and you can buy high-pressure treated meat and guacamole and shellfish. But this is, and it's great. It's high pressure, but it doesn't work on all food. And on dairy products, it's particularly difficult to use just high pressure. So we think if it's high pressure followed by ultra-shear technology, we can take it to the next level for certain foods. But also in the area of nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals.
Okay, so the question that I have is this a step towards or a step away from GMO?
Ooh, good question, Charles. Oh, man. Okay.
This is very.
You see enough ads. You see enough ads for stuff that has, no GMO and is pure and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, the health food store is built around it. So.
Well, this is definitely health food. This is don't mix it up with GMO. We're certainly not talking about genetically modified food at all. We're talking about regular food that you get, your liquid cheese, your ice cream, your cream, your milk. You now pasteurize your milk, which means you heat it, and that doesn't work well, and it certainly doesn't kill all the bugs and the enzymes that are in it. So that's why milk will spoil after a couple days left out, or a couple weeks in the refrigerator. We're taking it to the next level. This is totally different than GMO. This is a very natural way to get extended shelf life in certain foods, and also much more bioavailability in nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals than we have. And Charlie and David and others, it goes even further. Think about, again, I think the main thing here is we have a new way that we believe can effectively make nanoemulsions. Emulsions, two things that don't really mix that you get to mix together. We believe, and often you have to use chemicals and surfactants to mix them together and to keep them mixed. We believe we can do that with minor amounts of surfactants, perhaps even no level of surfactants, because we're taking the material and breaking it down to such small sizes that it goes into solution and that it becomes a permanent suspension, and it's so small a body actually absorbs it. But even outside of what you're ingesting, we're talking about cosmetics, we're talking about paint, we're talking about lubricants. How many times do you take a can of paint and you let it sit and it just settles out? Well, what if you put that paint through a system such as ultra-shear technology? It is possible that if we put it through ultra-shear technology, that paint would become one solution and stay in solution indefinitely. That's the power of potential power of ultra-shear technology. And you've talked about the phasics. Yes, we're going into a business now. We're looking at the possibility of teaming up with phasics, who are terrific at the front end of taking plant material and extracting out of that plant material your vitamins and your nutrients and your other molecules. But now, because many of these are not, because most of them in the plants come out in oils, they're not really very bioavailable. We're talking about the potential of putting them through our system, which knocks the oil down to tiny nanoliter-sized droplets, which makes it much more available in the body. We call it bioavailability.
Wow, that's amazing. That is truly amazing.
So clearly, it's a step away from.
Yes, yeah.
I'm going to let you go there. I'd have to agree with you. It's a step away from. It is a natural way. It's like when you go into Starbucks and you buy their Evolution juice. There's not a single preservative chemical in that juice. This is a natural way, just like high pressure is used now. It's a $10 billion market. This is a natural way to get food that is healthy for you, has no chemicals added, and yet has an extended shelf life, and still should taste the same and have the same texture that you're used to.
Wow.
So we're looking at the dairy products now in ultra shear. But to be very open with you, that's all controlled by the FDA, and it's a massive amount of work and time to get all of that through the FDA. So now we're focusing more in the areas of paints and lubricants and nutraceuticals, which have far less stringent guidelines that you have to worry about. And then we're looking there because we believe we can make an impact much sooner than we could in the food industry. We think we can make one in the food industry, but as a small company, we gotta pick the low-hanging fruit first. And we think the low-hanging fruit are in areas like nutraceuticals and cosmetics and areas like that.
That's interesting. You just hit the word I was looking for. And that, Terry Howlett's company, for instance, with Skin Visible, with their, I'm thinking sunscreen, if somehow that could lengthen the sunscreen effectability, to like 8 hours to 12 hours or something like that, that would be amazing.
That's a great point. That's a very great point. You get the sunscreens very oily, you put it on, and a lot of it, as we know, gets washed off, blown off. We go into water, etc. What if it was more soluble, more in your skin? What if it could hold itself better? You might get a longer time with that sunscreen. So we could sit here, guys, for the next 30 minutes and come up with 1,000 products that potentially could be modified, changed, and made better using ultra shear technology, which is why we're so excited about it. We're, as you know, Dr. Ting, who was a pioneer in the area of high-pressure processing, which is now that $10 billion market in the food area. Dr. Ting has been on our staff 11 years. He came on board a couple months after I founded the company, and he is the co-inventor of ultra shear technology, along with Dr. Lazar, my head of R&D. So we're excited about this. We're a small company, but we've been blessed with an amazing technology. Our job now is to execute, which I believe we're very good at. Our job is to pick out the low-hanging fruit, which I believe we're very good at, and then return a nice a nice investment to the investors who are putting their money into us.
Wow, that sounds, Rick Schumacher, Pressure Biosciences, sounds absolutely amazing. And thank you again to Tim Connally, our oil expert from Houston. And, prayers still going their way to Houston so that they fully recover, just like we're sort of recovering, barely, here on the Treasure Coast. But we'll get through it all. You've been listening to Money Info on WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WPSL.com, webcaster to the world. Treasure Coast Car Dives from Treasure Coast Lexus and Treasure Coast Toyota, straight ahead.